In the midst of the gloom, an ominous warning appears that everything around you is saturated with deadly goo poison. According to ancient legends, this dangerous poison originated deep in the depths of the boundless 10 million mountains. In those early days, the world was filled with microscopic threats in the form of viruses that invisibly attacked all living things. In addition to invisible diseases, the earth was inhabited by vile parasites and giant spiders, weaving their webs in anticipation of unwary victims. Among this nightmare, a special place was occupied by venomous animals, such as ferocious cobras, whose fangs brought instant death. At the time of its active spread, goo poison caused indescribable terror to people, rightfully considered the most frightening and destructive weapon of war, due to the fact that this substance has caused countless deaths. Its use has been officially discontinued and strictly prohibited. People with heavy hearts burned the remains of the dead and all traces of the presence of poison, hoping to get rid of this curse forever. However, the sages understood that the true cause of the bloody wars was not poison at all, and its simple destruction could not bring long-awaited peace to humanity. Many years passed. The world changed beyond recognition, built up with high-rise buildings, but suddenly the ancient source of deadly poison was discovered again. Many years passed. The world changed beyond recognition and was built up with modern megacities, but suddenly the ancient source of poison was discovered again. A young man is sitting in front of the monitor, immersed in heavy thoughts that his beloved girlfriend has left him. Cigarette butts are smoking on the ashtray, emphasizing the depressed state of the hero, who is trying to understand the gap that has occurred. All around him is a mess. Crumpled pieces of paper lie on the table, symbolizing his broken hopes and inner chaos. The hero's gaze falls on the poster on the wall, and he bitterly admits defeat in this life situation. Out of frustration, the guy sharply hits the computer mouse, taking out his anger on the equipment and obscenely scolding his former lover. The image of a girl who tearfully asked him to pretend to be the father of her child pops up in his memory. He remembers that her name is Mu Qingqing and realizes that their relationship was only part of a strange business deal. Lying in bed and looking at the ceiling, the hero reflects on his own worthlessness, believing that this was the reason for Faye's departure. The silence of the room is broken by a notification on the phone. The girl again sent a message with a request to go with her tomorrow for a checkup. Looking at the smartphone screen, the guy notes that this is the 5th time in a month when she turns to him with such a request. They went for a checkup together. On the way, Mu Qingqing said that he could go on alone as she needed to go back to class. He thought about the fact that the month wasn't over yet. Even so, he didn't say anything and just watched her leave. Mu Qingqing was almost out of sight when she suddenly stopped. She turned around and sighed heavily, as if doubting her decision. At that moment, he noticed a cluster of people ahead. The crowd looked tense and noisy, which immediately caught his attention. He stepped closer to see what had happened. People were talking animatedly, interrupting each other. From their conversations, he understood that a third victim had been found. People talked about the extreme brutality of the crime and how frightening the discovery site was. Someone mentioned that the murder rate in Guanda City has been increasing recently. Especially frightening was the fact that many of the victims were pregnant women. There were also warnings that the criminal is very dangerous. Residents were asked to be careful not to go out late at night and to report any suspicions to the police. He noticed a sign announcing a reward. It said that the perpetrator might have an accomplice, and that they might even be a woman or a child. After reading this, he couldn't help but think of Mu Qingqing. However, he decided almost immediately that he should not interfere, considering it not his business. At this moment, Mu Qingqing was forced into the car. The car pulled away quickly and disappeared from view, leaving him no time to react. Almost immediately after that, he was called out by name. A girl he recognized immediately approached him. It was Xiaofei, his ex-girlfriend. The unexpected encounter caught him off guard. Xiaofei said that she was doing well and mentioned that Zhang Xiang was going to arrange a classmate meeting, asking if he would come. Hearing Zhang Xiang's name, Wang Ming felt a sense of tension. He tried to refuse, saying that he was busy. Xiaofei noticed that he started refusing even before he knew the date of the meeting. This made her doubt his words. Wang Ming hurriedly explained that it wasn't a matter of not wanting to meet. However, her apology only increased his inner pain. He thought about how he was the one who couldn't provide her with a decent life. The thought made him feel guilty and bitter. At that moment, someone grabbed his shoulder sharply from behind. An unfamiliar voice spoke to Xiaofei in a humiliating tone. Wang Ming turned around and immediately recognized the speaker. It was Zhang Xiang. Zhang Xiang suddenly hit him. Wang Ming lost his balance and fell to the ground. With a smirk, Zhang Xiang stated that he had wanted to deal with him for a long time. He made it clear that he only tolerated him because of Xiaofei. Wang Ming tried to say something, but he didn't have time. Xiaofei coldly admitted that she had left him for Zhang Xiang. Zhang Xiang added mockingly that he would never have interacted with him if it wasn't for her. His words were filled with contempt. Zhang Xiang then picked Wang Ming up roughly, continuing to humiliate him. He hinted that his relationship with Xiaofei had started long before the breakup. Wang Ming felt a great shock and anger. Betrayal and humiliation hit him at the same time. Wang Ming sat tied up on a chair and didn't know where he was or what was going on. His head was heavy and his body was almost unresponsive. He came to the conclusion that he was still alive and realized that he had been tranquilized earlier. This clarified the situation a little, but did not reduce the fear. At that moment, the woman in front of him spoke up. She directly asked if he was the father of Mu Qingqing's child. Wang Ming broke down and burst into tears. He denied the accusation, claiming that there was only a business relationship between him and Mu Qingqing, and tried to figure out who these people were. The woman coldly replied that it didn't matter anymore. After that, she ordered him to be taken away. Men in suits came up to him, gagged him, and forced him away. He couldn't resist. He was dragged into the elevator. There were 2 armed men inside, and soon the elevator began to climb higher and higher. When the doors swung open on the 30th floor, an eerie scene opened up in front of him. In a large room, a bound girl sat by candlelight. Dangerous insects crawled on the floor, creating an atmosphere of terror. The whole thing looked like part of a grim ritual. There was also a man in a raincoat surrounded by candles. It was obvious that he was performing some sort of ritual. The cloaked man asked a question about Wang Ming, mentioning Mu Qingqing's pregnancy. One of the attendants said that the ritual had to be started because of the approaching eclipse. The man in the raincoat then accused Wang Ming of spoiling a valuable sacrifice. He promised a reckoning involving blood and soul. At this time, the lunar eclipse began. The atmosphere in the room became even more tense and sinister. Wang Ming tried to justify himself in a panic, denying his guilt and begging for his life. Fear and despair gripped him. However, the man in the raincoat said that the truth is no longer important. He announced that he would complete the creation of the so-called King Gu using everyone present. The woman who was helping with the ceremony realized at that moment that she was being used. This caused her to have an internal conflict. Suddenly, the massive chained cabinet swung open. The incident shocked everyone present. The bound girl screamed and called her father's name. Inside the cabinet was a strange creature wearing a helmet with a frightening look. It was the body of the king of the underground city Mulong, Mu Qingqing's father. The sight of him inspired a primal fear. The man in the raincoat ordered the destruction of all witnesses. The situation is out of control. At that moment, something inexplicable began to happen. The tension had reached its limit. Suddenly, the woman who had helped with the ritual earlier pulled out a weapon and opened fire. She stated that she would not be fooled and that it would not be possible to bring Mu Qingqing's father back. When the woman opened fire, the bullets flew very close to Wang Ming. She was aiming at the man in the raincoat, and several bullets hit him, but it didn't have any effect. Both Wang Ming and the woman were shocked by what they saw. The man in the raincoat was unharmed, as if the shots hadn't hurt him. The man in the raincoat chuckled and abruptly grabbed the woman's arm. He broke her wrist, causing her to drop the gun. Despite the pain and tears, the woman hit him on the head with her knee. She then took out a knife and tried to attack, but the cloaked man dodged. In response, he sprayed a black liquid in her face. It hit her in the eyes and she fell to the floor, trying to wipe it off. Watching this, Wang Ming realized with horror that something had been deliberately doused on her face. At this point, one of the guards reported a problem. The man in the raincoat ordered the sacrifice to be accepted without interrupting the ritual. After that, the creature that was previously in the closet suddenly pounced on Wang Ming. It grabbed him by the throat, making him unable to resist. Wang Ming was forcibly thrown into the black cauldron. He didn't understand what kind of liquid was surrounding him, and he thought with horror that it might be blood. The cloaked man completely submerged him in the cauldron. Wang Ming started to choke, realizing that he couldn't hold his breath any longer. Then they lifted him by the throat and threw him to the floor. At this moment, Wang Ming felt a sense of utter despair. He thought about his unfortunate life, remembering Xiaofei, Zhang Xiang, and all the strangers who had hurt him. The man in the raincoat began to say words in an incomprehensible language, continuing the ritual. He grabbed Wang Ming by the throat and lifted him up, letting out a mad laugh. Wang Ming's mouth started to bleed, and the creature that had previously been in the closet was covered in blood. After that, it began to vomit, making screams and crying. The creature that was previously in the closet continued to writhe. He vomited, his skin turning a sickly greenish hue. Wang Ming sat on the floor, breathing heavily. There was only one thought in my head. We need to get out and save ourselves. He tried to get up and run away, but the man in the raincoat suddenly grabbed his leg. This movement brought Wang Ming back into a state of panic. The cloaked man made it clear that he was using the blood goo to control his subordinate creature, and he wasn't going to let go of the victim. Wang Ming, overcome with fear, tried to resist. He punched the man in the raincoat in the face, sending him crashing to the floor. A strange liquid spilled out of the cloaked man's body. As it spread across the floor, it was as if his head had disappeared. Wang Ming thought in horror that he might have taken his head off. However, at the same time, the cloaked man grabbed his leg again. After that, the cloaked man gave the order to destroy Wang Ming. The creature that had been in the closet stood up and stared at him. Wang Ming started to run. The creature immediately chased after him, quickly closing the distance. It touched Wang Ming, and he fell to the floor, unable to hold back his tears and fear. At that moment, Wang Ming vomited a dark liquid that fell on the creature. It was covered with this substance and turned green again. The creature and Wang Ming collapsed to the floor at the same time, exhausted and disoriented. Meanwhile, the cloaked man's head, separated from his body, continued to move. It expressed rage and hatred. Wang Ming vomited the dark liquid again, and it landed directly on the cloaked man's head, completely covering it. Wiping his mouth, Wang Ming thought that he was just responding to what was done to him earlier. It was payback in kind. The cloaked man's head was completely covered in black liquid. Nothing happened for a while. Wang Ming wondered if it was finally over. He looked around, trying to make sense of what was happening. His gaze landed on Mu Qingqing, who was still tied up. He was faced with the choice of trying to save her or running away. Wang Ming thought about himself and admitted that he was used to thinking only for his own benefit. In the end, he decided to leave. However, in the next moment, a glowing bee-like creature appeared. It hovered near the head of the cloaked man. The creature noticed Wang Ming with its red eyes. Then it abruptly rushed towards him and penetrated his body. Wang Ming suddenly shouted out of control. His body bent abruptly and he fell to his knees, feeling a great pain inside. He put his hands on the floor and cried in a panic. The thought flashed through his mind that something impossible was happening to him, as if space itself had changed. Looking up with difficulty, he saw a snake crawling out of a jar in front of him. The sight left him even more shocked. The snake darted toward him but didn't attack. Instead, it enveloped him in a strange golden light. After that, the snake stopped and collapsed to the floor. Her body clenched convulsively, as if something was happening inside her. Wang Ming watched this, not understanding what was going on. In the next second, a yellow glowing creature flew out of the snake. The creature hovered in the air in front of Wang Ming and didn't show any aggression. He sensed that it was now his turn. The creature began to fly, leaving a trail of light behind it, and for a moment drew a strange symbol. Then his behavior changed dramatically. It glared at Wang Ming angrily, and then quickly charged towards him. He instinctively cringed, sensing that the situation was becoming dangerous. The creature abruptly approached and disappeared. Entering his body, Wang Ming screamed in sharp pain and collapsed on the floor. He writhed, unable to cope with the sensations, overcome by fear and humiliation. His screams echoed through the room. At this time, the woman who had opened fire earlier started to release Mu Qingqing from her restraints. She watched Wang Ming's condition anxiously. Wang Ming ran around in a panic, screaming in pain and shame, not knowing what was happening to him or how it would end. The girl slammed her heel into Wang Ming's shoulder. The impact was unexpectedly strong. The guy's body immediately lost its balance, and he fell to the floor, losing consciousness. At that moment, the doors burst open and the guards rushed in. They paused, scanning the ruined room, and then looked at the woman who had fired earlier, waiting for orders. She looked exhausted and exhausted. With an effort, she made it clear that everything was over. The voice was low, as if it had no strength left in it. One of the guards glanced at Wang Ming as if assessing the threat. The woman ordered Mu Qingqing to be taken away first, then ordered people to clean up everything here. The guard nodded, accepting the order. He walked over to Qingqing, picked her up carefully and carried her away. The second guard walked towards Wang Ming and stepped on his hand to check if he was still alive. In the next second, Wang Ming abruptly jumped up and shouted, causing the guard to recoil in surprise. The guard hit him in the chest, and Wang Ming was sent flying backwards, crashing into the standing pictures. They shattered. Without wasting any time, Wang Ming grabbed a sharp piece of the broken jug and slashed it across the guard's face. A wound appeared on the guard's face. He was startled. Even if he dodged, he still got a cut. The thought flashed through his mind that this guy was moving too confidently for an ordinary person. Wang Ming noticed a book lying nearby, quickly grabbed it and pointed it towards the guard, keeping his distance. He made it clear that he wasn't going to give up without a fight. The guard took a fighting stance, preparing to attack. At this moment, Wang Ming suddenly pointed to the side and distracted his attention. That brief moment was enough. With the book in hand, Wang Ming rushed to the elevator. The guard realized that he had been tricked, but Wang Ming was moving too fast. He managed to get inside and hit the down button in a hurry. The elevator doors began to close. When there was only a narrow gap left, a knife flew into it with force. Wang Ming tried to dodge, but the blade still stabbed into his shoulder. The elevator closed and went down. Wang Ming stood panting with a knife in his shoulder. Blood slowly trickled down his arm and dripped onto the book he was still holding. He picked it up and looked at it. The cover was covered in blood. Wiping it away with his hand, he saw the writing that made his stomach clench. It was signed Secret Archive of Heavenly Goo. When Wang Ming got home, He went straight to the bathroom. He turned on the water and stepped into the shower, letting the hot water run down his body. My thoughts were muddled, and the tension was fading. After a while, he stopped and thought. Everything that had happened an hour ago seemed unreal, like a strange and cruel dream that couldn't possibly be true. As he was wiping his head with a towel, he happened to look at his reflection and froze. His body changed. The muscles were more visible. The skin looked stronger. He looked down at his shoulder where the knife cut had been. The wound was completely gone. There was no pain, no scar. Wang Ming realized that it couldn't be explained in ordinary words. He sat down on the sofa, lit a cigarette, and tried to calm down. Then he picked up the book again. The thought nagged at him. The thing that had entered his body was clearly connected to her. He opened the book, and at the same time it glowed with a bright light, blinding him. Strange symbols appeared on the pages that he would never have understood before, but now the meaning was forming itself in my head. He realized that he could read this text. Startled, Wang Ming threw the book away. Something stirred inside his body. The beetle seemed to be sleeping, making a low rumble. Suddenly, the book burst into flames right in his hands. He threw it on the table, and in a moment it was completely burned away, leaving a dark mark on the surface. Wang Ming realized that he had already read the main thing. The bug that had entered his body was a golden goo, one of the strongest creatures of its kind. There were many gus, bamboo, stone, loach goo, dark snake goo, life snake, and many others. But the golden goo was considered the most powerful and rare. It was almost impossible to raise such a person. This required placing 12 top-level gus in a special vessel, where they devoured each other. Then the vessel was buried for a whole year, and in the end, only one survived. Flying golden goo was even rarer than normal and was considered a legend. Wang Ming sat down at his laptop and started searching for information. In the search, he typed in a query about goo poison. A description of ancient legends appeared on the screen. It was said that goo poison originated in the 10 Million Mountains and was considered the most terrifying weapon in the world in its heyday. He lit another cigarette, lost in thought. In his phone, he read that due to the mass killings, the use of goo poison was banned. At that moment, a message came from Ah Hui. He wrote that he knew what had happened and that Xiaofei wasn't worth it, suggesting that they meet the next day. Wang Ming stubbed out his cigarette. The names of Xiaofei and Gao Xiang popped up in my head. Despite his unresolved problems, he clearly felt that he now had the power. He grinned ominously, already knowing what was coming next. Inside him, the beetle woke up and purred softly again. In the morning, Wang Ming lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. He realized that he hadn't slept all night. At the same time, his body was filled with strength, as if he had had a great rest. The sensation was abnormal, but pleasant. He got up from the bed and stretched. Gao Xiang's name popped up in my head. Wang Ming chuckled coldly, thinking that he would still pay for everything. There was too much energy in her body, as if she was looking for a way out. Wang Ming picked up his phone and opened his contacts. His gaze lingered on the name Mu Qingqing. He immediately frowned and thought that even after all the changes, it wasn't worth provoking people related to such a world. After thinking for a while, he found Ah Hui's number and pressed call. He answered in a sleepy voice, lying in bed, and amiably asked how he was doing. Without further ado, Wang Ming asked for a loan of money. Ah Hui was surprised. In all the time they had known each other, Wang Ming had never asked for a loan. This struck him as odd. Wang Ming honestly said that he hadn't asked before because he wasn't sure if he could return it. Now the situation has changed. Ah Hui yawned and agreed without further questions, asking for the amount. When Wang Ming called out 1 million, Ah Hui answered as if it was a small matter. The conversation ended quickly. Ah Hui lit a cigarette, and Wang Ming almost immediately received a notification about the receipt of money to the account. Wang Ming dressed and went outside. At the store, he asked for an inexpensive phone and a new SIM card. The sales assistant started to talk about pricing plans and models, but Wang Ming immediately agreed to the proposed option. After paying, he thought that he would first create a new WeChat account. The plan was simple: pretend to be a girl and lure Gao Xiang out. Wang Ming was sure that it would bite. Only a short time passed. Wang Ming couldn't contain his emotions and quietly shouted out that the plan had worked. The new account received a message from Gao Xiang with a familiar greeting. Anger rose up inside Wang Ming. He mentally named it trash and prepared to continue playing. But the next message made him recoil abruptly. When Wang Ming saw the message, he threw the phone away and almost snatched it away. He shuddered in disgust and cursed loudly, closing his eyes. Meanwhile, Gao Xiang was sitting in his home, grinning. He believed that it was impossible to deceive him. The lack of posts and 2 perfect photos aroused his suspicions. He decided that it might be a fake account created by someone he knew. The thought of Xiaofei flashed through his mind, and he smugly decided to show that he couldn't be controlled. Gao Xiang was confident. He believed that in any case he remains a winner. and the interlocutor is just another toy. Wang Ming, still holding his stomach, angrily whispered that he couldn't bear to watch this anymore, feeling sick with disgust. On the same morning, a female boss woke up in another place. A servant was already standing by her bedside, and a guard was on duty at the door. The female boss waved her hand, allowing the servants to leave. She bowed in silence and left. Only she and the guard were left in the room. She got up from the bed. The guard stepped closer, allowing himself a familiar gesture, and then went straight to the report. He reported that all the news was blocked, and Ching Ching still hadn't come to her senses. The doctors found no obvious problems, but the condition remained serious. The female boss frowned, understanding where this was going. The symptoms were all too familiar. The guard confirmed her concerns. It was Gu, the previous Gu master was already dead, and now there was only one way out: to find another master who could wake up Ching Ching. The female boss asked if they had time. The guard replied that there were very few Gu masters left, and the number of murders had increased recently. All the victims were women, and the handwriting was clearly from a different master. This meant that someone dangerous was very close by. Its purpose was unknown, but the last nights, according to the guardsmen, were far from calm. The female boss considered the worst-case scenario. If he has evil intentions, ordinary methods will not stop him, the guard agreed. Only Master Gu is capable of dealing with another Master Gu. He couldn't help but think of yesterday in the Sea of Blood. The female boss has ordered increased surveillance and to report to her immediately if any changes occur. In addition, she ordered the fugitive Wang Ming to be brought back, cleaned up herself, and picked up Ching Ching from the hospital. Ordinary doctors were powerless against Gu. The guard nodded silently and went out to carry out the order. At this time, Wang Ming sneezed and chuckled, thinking that someone was clearly remembering him. He went to a clothing store, determined to look decent at a group meeting. He wasn't going to let Xiaofei and Zhang Xiang look down on him. Soon after, he came out of the store wearing a dark blue suit and tie. I got a call on my phone. His friends told him that they were ready to pick him up. Wang Ming refused, choosing to take a taxi instead. Ah Hui promised to help and check in advance if the right couple had arrived. Wang Ming got into a taxi and opened a chat with the fake account. He continued his correspondence with Gao Xiang, deliberately flirting. He quickly took the bait and offered to meet up, sending increasingly explicit messages. Wang Ming only smiled coldly as he continued the game to the end. When he arrived, Fetty and Ah Hui were already waiting for him. When Wang Ming saw his friends, he suddenly realized that he didn't have many truly close people left. They went inside the restaurant together. Fetty chided Wang Ming for going missing after graduation, but Ah Hui quickly smoothed the conversation over. As they entered the hall, they heard a familiar voice. One of the girls smiled and said that all their carefree trio had finally gathered, and everyone had been waiting for a long time. Wang Ming sat down with Fetty and Ah Hui at the table where the food was already prepared. He turned around and saw Gao Xiang sitting next to Xiaofei, holding her shoulders. Fetty noticed the bewilderment and surprise that Xiaofei was sitting with Zhang Xiang. Ah Hui immediately tried to calm his friend down and prevent any further questions. The former prefect stood up and began a toast to her fellow students. She noted that the graduation took place only a few months ago, and this is their first meeting, emphasizing that one of the rich comrades paid for the organization of the event. Everyone raised their glasses except for Wang Ming and his friends, who were sitting quietly. The prefect immediately reprimanded Wang Ming for being late and for not showing respect to Zhang Xiang, who had paid for the dinner. Ah Hui replied that now graduates are not required to obey the old rules, and no one should criticize them for their behavior. Xiaofei intervened, took the headman's hand, and asked him not to create a conflict. The headmistress acknowledged that Xiaofei was right, and reminded her that Wang Ming was not suitable for her, and Zhang Xiang was more suitable. Gao Xiang offered to raise a glass to his friends and promised that, in case of problems, he and Zhang Xiang would help resolve any issues. Everyone hit their glasses and drank. Gao Xiang apologized to Wang Ming for having Xiaofei with him now, and tried to explain the situation. He pointed out that if Wang Ming was with Xiaofei, he wouldn't be able to make her happy. He said that he and Xiaofei had been together for a long time and were afraid of upsetting Wang Ming. They waited until graduation to let him know about their relationship, hoping it would allow him to focus on his studies and future. Gao Xiang kept saying that Wang Ming didn't have to worry about finding a job. He could help him get settled in. He noted that people with low self-esteem are often stubborn, and for people like Wang Ming, you need to show patience and care. Gao Xiang added that he may have been harsh, but he wants everyone to live together, and asked for forgiveness from those he might have offended. The village head supported Zhang Xiang and praised his wisdom. Wang Ming, after drinking some alcohol, said that he was willing to listen to Zhang Xiang and follow his instructions. Ah Hui was surprised and noticed that the situation was getting strange, and Fetty remembered Zhang Xiang's promise to help with the competition. Wang Ming took some more alcohol, slammed the glass down on the table, and asked Zhang Xiang a provocative question about his feelings for Xiaofei. Zhang Xiang was shocked and didn't know how to react. Wang Ming stood up and showed the restaurant screen on his phone, where Zhang Xiang's correspondence with the fake account was displayed. There were pictures of Zhang Xiang on the screen, which caused a huge shock to everyone present. Hui, seeing this, couldn't hide his delight and surprise, admiring Wang Ming's courage and determination. Zhang Xiang, seeing the audience's reaction, knew that his dignity had been compromised. Anger bubbled up inside him, and he decided that he would take it out on Wang Ming for publicly humiliating him. Xiaofei was shocked by what she saw on the screen. Zhang Xiang ignored the others and knelt down in front of her, admitting his mistake and showing remorse. He said he was sorry for what had happened and would not allow it to happen again. He held Xiaofei's hand, still insisting that what he did was only a weakness and that his feelings for her were real. His behavior looked desperate and humiliated, but sincere at first glance. The former prefect intervened and tried to influence Xiaofei. She claimed that Zhang Xiang realized his mistake, had great ambitions and position, and Wang Ming, in her opinion, had no future. Zhang Xiang, after recovering, turned his anger on Wang Ming, accusing him of deceit and provocation. In the hall, the voices of fellow students were heard, who began to defend Zhang Xiang, claiming that he was able to admit guilt and correct himself. Some people supported the idea that this is why Zhang Xiang is a successful person. The atmosphere gradually tilted in his favor. Xiaofei couldn't stand the pressure, burst into tears, and finally decided to forgive Zhang Xiang, only asking him not to do it again. He hugged her, and the headman loudly declared the triumph of love and loyalty. There were shouts of approval in the hall, and someone began to make jokes, demanding that the holiday continue. Zhang Xiang was ostentatiously close to Xiaofei, not hiding his superiority. Wang Ming suddenly interjected, uttering a phrase with a clear hint that instantly changed the mood. His words made Zhang Xiang furious and Xiaofei shocked. Zhang Xiang reacted harshly, replying rudely, causing Xiaofei to choke on the water. Wang Ming continued to speak, deliberately provoking him and putting the situation in an even more humiliating light. These words finally made Zhang Xiang lose his temper. He cursed furiously and lost control. There was tension in the audience. Many people did not believe what was happening. Zhang Xiang grabbed a chair and said in a fit of anger that he would deal with Wang Ming. Some of his fellow students felt that Wang Ming had gone too far, and now he could not avoid the consequences. When Zhang Xiang rushed forward, Wang Ming unexpectedly easily left the path of the strike. Due to his own momentum, Zhang Xiang lost his balance and collapsed. Those present did not immediately understand what had happened. They felt as if Wang Ming was moving too fast, almost unreal. Fetty was startled by what he saw and thought that Wang Ming had become a completely different person, as if he had received special training. Xiaofei walked up to Wang Ming and slapped him on the cheek. He remained calm, did not react in any way, and only reacted coldly to what was happening. Wang Ming said that times are changing and it is not necessary to humiliate those who are weaker now. His words were calm but humiliating. Xiaofei cried out in tears that she hated Wang Ming, accusing him of insulting, fighting, and ruining the entire evening. Not understanding why such people even existed, Wang Ming reminded Xiaofei of the past, how she had taken advantage of him at the beginning of the relationship and then had no regrets about trading him for a better-off person. He didn't hide his bitterness and bewilderment, not understanding how things had gotten to the point where she now wanted to hurt him. Xiaofei stopped crying and tried to stop the situation, accusing Wang Ming of being insane and hinting that he had gone too far. His internal state was unstable, his thoughts were confused, and his emotions were bursting out. At this moment, one of the men intervened and openly showed aggression towards Wang Ming. He immediately sensed the hostility directed at him and, without hesitation, struck out, instantly disabling the opponent. The man collapsed on the floor, and Wang Ming didn't hide his cold gaze, making it clear that he was ready to continue if anyone decided to take the next step. Zhang Xiang tried to stop what was happening, urging Wang Ming not to cross the line. However, he responded forcefully, pushing Zhang Xiang away and making it clear that he didn't believe in remorse or lack of revenge in the future. Wang Ming knew that if he let Zhang Xiang go now, he would definitely try to take revenge. The thought only made him harder. He pinned Zhang Xiang down, making it clear that today had not gone according to the scenario that Zhang Xiang was used to. It was important for Wang Ming to break the illusion of permissiveness based on money and status alone. He pointed out that wealth does not guarantee protection, and asked a direct question. Why is no one rushing to help Zhang Xiang now? He even suggested that he ask Xiaofei for help. Zhang Xiang called out to Xiaofei in desperation, but she froze, not knowing what to do. The situation was out of control, and fear paralyzed her. Wang Ming said that he had nothing to lose, and thus increased the pressure. Zhang Xiang panicked, begged Xiaofei to agree to any conditions to save him. Xiaofei remained silent, looking completely drained. Zhang Xiang snapped and started to accuse her, losing his last bit of dignity. At this moment, Wang Ming suddenly retracted his own words, saying that he had no intention of going back to what he had already given up. He addressed all of his classmates, leaving a sharp and memorable statement, and then, together with Ah Hui and Fetty, headed for the exit. Before leaving, Wang Ming coolly suggested calling security, citing the mess and inappropriate behavior inside the hall. He made it clear that he wanted nothing more to do with the case. Zheng Sung was shouting furiously that he wouldn't let him leave, and one of his fellow students actually called security, reporting serious problems. On the way out, Ah Hui and Fetty were shocked by Wang Ming's behavior. They felt as if there was a completely different person in front of them. Wang Ming calmly replied that this world is cruel, and sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back against those who have humiliated you for years. Ah Hui warned him about possible revenge from Zhang Xiang and his family. Fetty, in turn, half-jokingly began to make fantastic guesses about Wang Ming's sudden changes. Wang Ming reacted ironically, insinuating that he was too engrossed in reading short stories. At that moment, an unfamiliar voice rang out. 3 men in formal suits and dark glasses appeared nearby. Fetty and Ah Hui became nervous, assuming that they were people from the criminal world or representatives of some power. They asked Wang Ming not to provoke them. Wang Ming, on the other hand, looked calm. He suggested that his friends leave, saying that he would sort it out himself and let these people take him away. Wang Ming realized who it was that had come for him, and asked for a moment to say goodbye to his friends. The man in the suit watching this noted that Wang Ming was acting sensibly and wasn't trying to drag others into his problems. Wang Ming briefly said goodbye to Ah Hui and Fetty, telling them to leave. His words sounded calm, but inside he was tense to the limit. All he hoped for was that his friends would actually leave and not try to interfere. Fetty sensed that something was wrong with Wang Ming, and Ah Hui quickly understood the hidden meaning behind his words. They decided to pretend to leave without even knowing how serious the situation was. Wang Ming took a deep breath, trying to control himself. The next moment, a man in a suit put a hand on his shoulder. The pressure was so intense that Wang Ming could barely move, as if his body had stopped responding to it. He tried to see if he had a choice, but the look on the man's face told him he had no choice. Nevertheless, he was still offered the illusion of a solution, accompanied by a cold threat. The other 2 men immediately took control of Wang Ming. He didn't resist. Soon, he was put in a car, where the gun was pointed directly at him. On the way, the man in the suit noticed that Wang Ming's friends still tried to follow. When Wang Ming turned around, he actually saw Fetty and Ah Hui's car. Fetty immediately realized that he had contacted the wrong people and started to panic. Hui also realized a much more terrifying thing. Wang Ming was actually being taken away by force, and there was almost no chance to interfere. The driver was a man with a frightening reputation. The car took off, picking up speed sharply. Even the escorts began to feel obvious discomfort from the crazy ride. The car sped past traffic at a dangerous speed. Ah Hui, who was trying to keep up, realized that it was impossible to catch up with them. Soon the ride ended as abruptly as it had begun. Wang Ming was taken out of the car. His condition was grave, but he still had a clear mind. He was roughly led inside the building and thrown to the floor. A female boss appeared in front of him. One of her arms was injured, but that didn't stop her from maintaining a cold, domineering expression. She looked at Wang Ming as if he was a rare find. Despite his past experience, which almost cost him his life, she called it luck. The woman calmly sat down in a chair, lit a cigarette, and only then began to talk about the real reason for everything that was happening. It reminded Wang Ming of the Golden Goo, the creature that had almost destroyed an entire master clan. This Goo was the one who recognized Wang Ming as his master, making him the center of attention of much more dangerous forces. And the scariest part was that because of the Golden Goo, the other masters had already started moving. They were coming this way. Wang Ming, despite his position, suddenly raised his hand and called out the price. His demand was bold and unexpected. The female boss was surprised, but he continued, making it clear that kidnapping and attempted murder couldn't be cheap. Even a huge sum, he said, was too small a price to pay for everything that happened. The woman reminded him of the difference in position, calling him an insignificant creature that could be destroyed at any moment. One of the men in the suit immediately backed her up with a threat. However, Wang Ming remained calm. He noted that the threats are no longer valid and pointed out a strange detail. He has not yet been killed. It meant that he had what they needed. He explicitly stated that cooperation is possible only for the designated amount. The female boss lit a cigarette, assessing the situation. After a moment, she admitted that she had underestimated him and agreed. The man in the suit noticed that Wang Ming's mind was surprisingly cool. After that, the conversation got to the point. The female boss explained that Wang Ming was now the master of Goo and the master of Golden Goo. But such power is dangerous. Without proper control, he will either be destroyed by other masters or he will die himself. One of the first tasks was to awaken the Goo inside Mu Qingqing. Wang Ming admitted that he didn't know how to do it, but he was told to just follow the instructions. He was taken away, changed, and brought to the room where Qing was lying on the bed. She looked weak and still hadn't regained consciousness. The female boss acted without hesitation. She stabbed Wang Ming, causing him shock and sharp pain. The guard immediately restrained him, not allowing him to resist. The blood was brought to Qing's lips, and a drop fell inside. It was explained that the blood of the owner of a golden goo is able to heal and awaken other gus. However, Wang Ming's wound was healing too quickly, so the procedure was repeated. After a while, Qing still didn't wake up. Wang Ming was exhausted, restrained by the guards, and his anger was growing. He demanded to be released. The female boss agreed, wanting to see what he would do. Once free, Wang Ming openly challenged her. In response, the woman threw him away with a single blow, clearly showing the difference in combat experience. She coldly noted that without skills, his strength was useless. At this moment, Wang Ming's rage reached its limit. His body shuddered, and suddenly a goo burst out of him, revealing itself openly for the first time. Wang Ming didn't understand where the golden goo came from, but he immediately decided to stall for time. Now the main thing is not to let yourself be crushed. He chuckled and asked if the female boss was scared. After that, Wang Ming claimed that this was his golden goo. The guards and the female boss froze in shock. Even Golden Goo himself seemed surprised to hear himself called baby. The female boss coldly asked if Wang Ming was capable of controlling this creature. In response, he brazenly offered to beg her if she wanted to stay alive. He threatened to incite the Golden Goo. In the next second, it shot forward. Wang Ming realized in horror that Goo had actually listened to him. The Golden Goo almost reached the female boss, but it suddenly broke through the ceiling and disappeared. Control was lost. The female boss and the security guard slowly approached Wang Ming. He laughed nervously, saying that it was all a joke, and Goo would be back soon. Wang Ming started making excuses, claiming that Golden Goo was just trying to get some fresh air. At that moment, fear took over. The female boss noticed his condition and ordered him to bring new clothes. The guard took Wang Ming away while he tried to talk about friendship and alliance. Suddenly, a dark creature appeared from a hole in the ceiling. A few seconds later, a man appeared in his place. He calmly demanded to hand over the divine secret box Goo. The situation immediately became tense. The guard pointed a gun at him, but the man just raised his hand. The weapon disappeared, swallowed up by the dark power. The female boss threw the knife, but it disappeared just like that, missing its target. The man repeated the demand and warned that he would not speak for the third time. The danger became obvious. Wang Ming immediately intervened, claiming that the box was stolen by them, not him. He tried to shift all the blame onto the female boss and her people while running for his life. The female boss cursed as she realized that the situation was getting out of hand. One of the guards thought of the divine secret box Goo, and the men in black in a panic. The mysterious man coldly stated that no one would be able to escape. He demanded to hand over the box and added that he felt that Wang Ming was a Golden Goo, the perfect weapon. Wang Ming was dumbfounded. Then he shouted sharply, asking if this master himself would have obediently agreed if he had been in his place. The man thought about it, his gaze wavered. He realized that his master had never taught him to act like this. He was confused and even shed tears. Not knowing what to do next, Wang Ming privately decided that this guy was clearly not the smartest. At that moment, a Golden Goo flew into the room through the window. The man didn't have time to react. Dark dust began to come out of his body, as if the essence itself had crumbled. Seconds later, it completely disappeared. The golden flames engulfed the remnants of darkness without a trace. Wang Ming chuckled and reminded him that he had said that his baby would definitely come back. He immediately claimed that he had just saved everyone's lives and raised the price to 2 billion. The female boss coldly replied that they hadn't settled yet. Wang Ming retorted that without the Golden Goo, he would have been killed long ago. He also noted that he understood that their opponent was just a fanatic and a dullard. The female boss explained that he belonged to the Gu Nanjiang clan, closed, fanatical, and devoid of morals. To her, such people were disgusting. She stressed that if rumors about the box reach them, it will mean death for everyone. After that, she unexpectedly threw Wang Ming a black pill, and he reflexively swallowed it. Boss explained that it was poison. Golden Goo can heal Goo, but not poison. If Wang Ming decided to betray them, he would die in agony. Wang Ming was outraged by the cruelty, but the female boss told him to be obedient. Then Wang Ming suddenly approached and made a bold gesture, which infuriated her. He calmly stated that he had a secret box from the very beginning, and together with the Golden Goo, he had learned all the secrets. According to him, the female boss is already infected with a special attraction Goo Goo that will make her feel only for him and will not be able to harm him. The female boss was shocked. She couldn't believe that this kind of goo really existed. The guard's only thought at that moment was that he too would like to have such power. Wang Ming stood under the water and frowned. His body felt strange, as if something was slowly changing inside him. At the same time, the female boss was taking a shower in another room and was angry, calling Wang Ming an idiot. The thought of him irritated her even more. Wang Ming thought about the golden goo. It bothered him that the bug was flying out too often, and he knew it couldn't go on like this. The female boss mentally brushed off any feelings. She told herself that she would never like this guy. Wang Ming recalled the Book of Secrets. It said that the A-level attraction goo required a lot of preparation, but he managed to activate it too quickly. The female boss was trying to focus on her business. She knew that any emotion right now could complicate things. Wang Ming got out of the shower and dried off with a towel. He clearly realized that she could only be deceived temporarily. Then he needed real control over the secret goo box. The female boss, wrapped in a towel, noted that her body was recovering faster than expected. She grudgingly admitted that Wang Ming wasn't so useless. Later, Wang Ming sat down to meditate, fully focusing on the inner world. Soon, the female boss came to the room and ordered the door to be opened. After entering, she heard Wang Ming confidently say that his body had already shown medicinal properties, and if used properly, the effect could be enhanced. She lit a cigarette and asked bluntly, "What can he do against Master Gu if he returns?" Wang Ming realized that he couldn't back down. He said that he did not have to help for free and that he was now their main chance. The female boss reminded him that they were in the same boat. Wang Ming replied harshly, "Only he can save her." When the conversation came to terms, he demanded not only the money, but also her. The female boss stubbed out her cigarette in silence. After a pause, she agreed, but only on the condition that Wang Ming solve the problem with Master Gu. Left alone, Wang Ming realized that he was running out of time and needed to learn faster. The female boss ordered the guards to prepare Tai Ning and transfer 5 billion to Wang Ming. The guards were shocked, but they obeyed. One of them wondered how unpredictable women's decisions are. When the door was opened, Tainan handed over the map. Wang Ming chuckled contentedly and declared that they would have a fascinating journey ahead of them. Tainan tried to remind him about business, but Wang Ming had already changed the subject and offered to teach him the attraction goo technique with a grin. Tainan just laughed and said that he was much better at other things. Wang Ming and Taineng were leaving when one of the guards tried to stop them. Tainan confidently replied that Wang Ming was now part of their team. "The guard told me about the dead master from Nanjiang. He came with 4 gods, a demon, a mage, a zombie, and a monster." Wang Ming was surprised. Magic demon? Zombie? Monster? The guard explained that after the master's death, their treasure, the divine secret box Gu, had gone missing, and the master had gone to an unknown destination. Tainan realized that the dead man was one of the gods. The female boss added that the dead man is a god of magic, and the zombie is a separate kind of Gu. There are 3 types of Gu body: living, dead, and ghostly. A living Gu controls animals and plants, while a dead Gu controls objects like gold, water, and fire, as well as millions of other things. Wang Ming explained to Taineng how to distinguish gods by their abilities. The god of magic controls Gu, the god of monsters controls weapons, and the ghost creates smaller ghosts. Tainan asked about the demon god. Wang Ming said that Gu can be a medicine or a weapon. If the master is good, an angel; if evil, a demon. The female boss clarified that the demon god is the youngest and most inexperienced, nicknamed Mimon because of his appearance. She inquired about Wang Ming's relationship with the divine secret box. He replied that it was burned, but there was a secret inside the attraction of Gu. Tainan wanted to join Wang Ming. The female boss watched them with displeasure. Later, Wang Ming and Tainan were relaxing with the girls, discussing Gu attraction training. Tainan jokingly asked when the training session would start, and Wang Ming reminded them that they first needed to get the money back from Xiao Hong, their boss. Tainan was impressed by Wang Ming's skills and jokingly discussed how many girls with money he had already seduced. Wang Ming explained that the richest boss in the city is Mo, but he's not here right now, so Hong is running things. Tainan joked that if Wang Ming starts a relationship with Boss Hong, he will become his boss. Wang Ming agreed, and Tainan recognized him as his big brother and boss. Wang Ming and Boss Hong walked up to the man they had fought earlier. He was lying with his eyes closed. Wang Ming reported that he now possessed the divine secret box Gu and had already cured Qing Qing. He promised to take care of Xiao Hong, whose arm wasn't completely healed yet. He demanded a bowl of clean water, dog blood, and a willow stick. Tainan immediately brought everything he needed. Wang Ming prepared the ritual while holding the dog's blood and directed it at the zombies. The zombie began to envelop itself in the power of Gu. Obeying Wang Ming, Bigu started to secrete a black liquid. Its trajectory became ragged, zigzagging, and then it returned to Wang Ming. On the surface, it looked as if the technique had been completed successfully. Wang Ming pretended to use the power inside his body. ostensibly summoning the king of all goo. He assured others that he now knew the way to the right person, but in reality this was a lie. He deliberately kept his calm so that no one would notice the trick. After that, he ordered the money to be prepared and took Taineng with him. They left the room and went outside. On the way, Wang Ming assured Taineng that he was going to visit a master who could solve Boss Long's problem and help fight the other goo masters. Tainan trusted him completely. Wang Ming, on the other hand, was clearly assessing the situation. He knew that Tainan seemed a little silly, but he was being too reserved, which meant that he was being watched. In order to get the money and protect himself, Wang Ming decided to find a person to whom he could later shift the responsibility. Soon, he noticed a flag that read about prophecies and predictions. Below him, an old man was sitting on the ground, surrounded by leaves and pitchers. Outwardly, he looked like an ordinary homeless person. Wang Ming announced that they were there. Tainan was shocked, because the person sitting in front of them was clearly not a master. However, Wang Ming confidently stated that such people like to hide. He deliberately exaggerated the old man's importance, saying that he was dangerous and that his presence scared people away for miles. Leaving Taineng aside, Wang Ming walked over to the old man. He immediately started talking about money and benefits, assuring that cooperation will bring profit. The old man, who wasn't really a master, quickly got his bearings and called out the price with a 5-finger swipe. Wang Ming agreed without hesitation and promised to pay twice as much for any rare or strange items. The old man immediately offered a black bead and demanded an extra amount. Wang Ming promised money, food, and shelter and ordered them to wait. Wang Ming then went back to Taineng and lied, calling the old man a peerless master. He said that the man had asked for a huge sum for his help and offered to give him a little scare with a gun. Tainan remembered the boss, ordered to temporarily obey Wang Ming, and agreed to all the conditions. They walked up to the old man together, and Tainan held up the gun. The old man immediately tried to refuse and came up with excuses, but Wang Ming took him aside and started threatening him, while promising him wealth and a stable life. The old man, realizing that there was no choice, introduced himself as a Taoist and started talking about fate and luck. He assured that cooperation would benefit everyone, but again demanded money. Wang Ming pretended to be delighted by his words, and Tainan was finally convinced that this was a true master. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out from the wall, even though there was no one nearby. The voice threatened the ghosts and demanded the return of the golden goo and the divine secret box. Wang Ming and the old man were both shocked at the same time. The old man clearly didn't understand what kind of ghosts he was talking about, and Wang Ming realized that the ghost god had interfered with the game. Suddenly, 2 ghosts appeared nearby. A boy and a girl. Their appearance was abrupt and unnatural. Wang Ming and the Taoist were shocked to realize that they were actually spirits. The ghosts only uttered one word, repeating it over and over. It was clear that they were demanding food. Wang Ming grabbed the Taoist in a panic, and the latter burst into tears, not understanding what was going on and what exactly the ghosts wanted. It quickly became clear that we are talking about food. The Taoist, in fear, decided that they needed to be fed urgently, and began insisting that they use all the food they have on them. Wang Ming immediately realized the absurdity of the situation. He noted that ghosts do not eat ordinary human food, and questioned the Taoist's competence. This caused the old man to urgently change his explanation. The Taoist concluded that ghosts are possessed by young objects. This sounded extremely disturbing. Almost immediately, he took a strange and frightening action, finally confirming that he was acting in a panic. He ordered Wang Ming to run away immediately, saying that he was going to use the power of youth accumulated over hundreds of years to distract the spirits. Wang Ming dashed away without thinking. As he ran away, he mentally admired his self-sacrifice and vowed to return with help. However, at this moment, the Taoist had already changed his intentions. Left in front of the ghosts, the old man began to justify himself, admitting his own infirmity and old age. He stated that his flesh was no longer valuable, and pointed out Wang Ming as a more suitable prey. After that, the ghosts abruptly changed their target and started chasing after Wang Ming. He immediately realized that he had been deceived, and decided to immediately move on to a backup plan. He wondered if ghosts could pass through walls, and if there was any chance of escape at all. Their hiss was fast approaching, and there was almost no time left. In desperation, Wang Ming decided to release Bigu. The creature flew out of his body at a critical moment. The ghosts reacted instantly, recognizing her as the Golden King Goo that they had been searching for a long time. The Taoist, who was watching the scene, reacted in an extremely strange way, clearly not realizing the gravity of the situation. Bigu made a sound and immediately returned back to Wang Ming's body. This infuriated him, as it was useless at the most dangerous moment. However, the ghosts suddenly noticed that Wang Ming was wearing soul eating beads. Their attitude changed instantly. Sensing the threat, the wraiths retreated and disappeared, leaving only a promise to return for his life. Wang Ming stared at the beads, realizing for the first time that they were indeed a powerful weapon. The Taoist coughed and immediately declared that it was the rarest item in the universe, albeit with an extremely strange name. He reminded that he still hadn't been paid for all this. Wang Ming was outraged. He noted that the old man almost ruined him, and doubted any guarantees after such a purchase. The Taoist, however, did not hesitate to threaten, demanding money and saying that otherwise he would use his so-called pure stream of youth. Tainan approached Wang Ming along with 2 guards to offer help. Wang Ming quickly warned the Taoist that no help was needed, and assured him that they were only exchanging battle techniques. Wang Ming explained to Tainan that money is a priority, and major problems can be solved in private. He said that they encountered 4 goo gods, but were able to chase them away. Taoist Jiang Sanjiang proved himself in this fight, using his abilities and helping to deal with the ghosts. Wang Ming pointed out that it was now possible to use the Taoist's powers to bring Boss Mo Long back. The Taoist originally didn't understand Wang Ming's intentions, but Wang Ming had given him a chance to prove himself. If he did well, they would become rich. If not, no one would blame him. Together with Xiaoman and Tainan, Wang Ming stood in front of the sleeping zombie. The Taoist began to use his skills to summon the souls of heaven and earth, preparing for a difficult task. Wang Ming observed his tactics, assessing the actions and consequences. Suddenly, the zombie dispersed into dust, demonstrating the success of the Taoist's actions. Xiaoman expressed her gratitude, promising to do whatever master wished as long as she could. Wang Ming realized that it was necessary to defeat such opponents in order to become the strongest. He noted the effectiveness of his search technique and confirmed the correctness of the chosen strategy, gaining the trust of the Taoist. Wang Ming took the Taoist away to manage his funds without being noticed. At the club, the Taoist enjoyed the attention of the 2 girls, and Wang Ming expressed his gratitude for their help, celebrating their joint victories and celebrations. They discussed the possibilities of working together, sharing their plans for the next few days. The next day, Wang Ming woke up, and while washing his face, he recalled the events of the previous night, including observing the actions of the Taoist and the girls. He was thinking about how he could use it for his own purposes now. Suddenly, the door opened and the master appeared before Wang Ming. He bowed and announced that he would live together with Wang Ming from now on, passing on the responsibility for his actions and the lost mana. Wang Ming was forced to accept a new ally after realizing that he was now responsible for a master who had lost his 300-year-old innocence and strength. Wang Ming was startled that the Taoist had no mana, and that he had to take responsibility. He slammed the door shut, telling the old man to leave and not interfere, emphasizing that it was too dangerous to follow him. The Taoist started to cry, begging for a chance to show off his tricks, but Wang Ming firmly decided that without mana, the old man would not be able to help, and his path now had to lie towards safe removal. The Taoist continued to sob, saying that the world was full of dangers and cruel people, and that homeless old people like him couldn't be trusted since his mana was never real. Wang Ming, remembering the events of the previous day, opened the door and promised the old man money to leave. The Taoist hugged Wang Ming's legs and admitted that he saw a kind heart in him, even though Wang Ming's appearance seemed unscrupulous. Wang Ming replied that he really wasn't a good person and didn't want to be one, so he shouldn't get involved with him. At that moment, Tainan came running and reported that they had found the location of a strange immortal, and the boss told them to act immediately. The Taoist bitterly said that he was too proud to lose everything, and now he lost. His property can be taken away by others, and he is powerless against it. Wang Ming thought of Jiang Xiangjiang and how this person was actually a student of the Tao. Xiaoman reported that her people had already surrounded the strange immortal's secret base and were waiting for Wang Ming to lure him out, capture him, or destroy him. Problems are growing one after another, and we need to act without delay. Wang Ming pushed the Taoist aside and demanded the money, which Xiaoman passed through the security guard, handing the briefcase with the money to Wang Ming. Wang Ming pointed out that the strange immortal was one of the 4 gates of the Tian people, and that he would do his best to deal with the situation. They drove out in a black car, and Wang Ming told the old Taoist to wait outside, assuring him that despite his age and weakness, he would still be able to help if necessary. They saw a closed garage. Tainan noticed that there was only one exit inside, as the person had not left it all this time. Wang Ming decided to add another $500,000 to accurately capture the immortal. Xiaoman was hesitant, but he agreed to contribute more funds, and Wang Ming noted that it was the right choice. He specified that the old man should wait outside, and he would lead the people inside to face the enemy. The old man asked if Wang Ming was sure of his plan, to which Wang Ming explained that he had fought this man before and knew his abilities. He revealed that the opponent can control the iron goo, which destroys metal, and that in return, he will summon the golden silkworm goo, which is able to resist the iron version. Wang Ming pointed at the opponent's temple and noted the presence of problems. The old man noticed that Wang Ming was overconfident, And at that moment, a dark force began to pour out from the garage. The guards began to open fire on her, preparing to repel the attack. Bullets that hit the dark force didn't deal any damage to it. The old man explained that it was an iron-absorbing goo, and that any weapons here were useless. It was better to throw rocks or branches at it. Wang Ming thought that such a goo could absorb metal, but it wasn't fatal. And the strange immortal probably had other tricks to keep in mind. Wang Ming picked up a brick and threw it at the dark force, hoping to throw the opponent off balance. The brick hit the old man's face and his glasses flew out, making him gasp in pain. Wang Ming noticed that he had missed, but continued to monitor the situation. The guards started throwing rocks to distract the dark force while the old man lay on the ground, shielding himself from the impact. All of a sudden, the man Wang Ming had been fighting with recently appeared. He stated that his iron-absorbing goo was the strongest defense in the world, and that no amount of attacks could break through it. Wang Ming tested it out with confidence, and was able to break through the defense by punching the man in the face. The man was startled that his defense didn't work as well as he expected. Wang Ming noted that although the iron-absorbing goo blocked all attacks, it was no match for his golden silkworm baby goo. Suddenly, a golden bee goo appeared, ready to act, and began to suck in all the iron-absorbing goo, neutralizing its power. Tainan watched in surprise, and Wang Ming decided that the enemy was unstoppable, and that his approach with the golden silkworm was correct. The man was confused, realizing that Wang Ming was using his own goo against him. The guards rushed towards him, but the dark force captured one, and the other began to retreat. Wang Ming noted that he would study the behavior of the iron-absorbing goo next time and use more consistent attacks. Wang Ming grabbed the brick again and threw it at the car, hoping to use it as a weapon. The man protested that Wang Ming didn't understand the art of goo, but in the next second, a brick hit him squarely in the face and knocked him off his feet. Wang Ming thought that the iron-absorbing goo only served to distract the opponent, and that in a battle with a scoundrel like this, his dastardly move was justified. Suddenly, another brick hit Wang Ming and he fell. The old man praised the brick for its efficiency and noted that this approach worked well, similar to artificial flying goo. At this moment, another person appeared and said that golden silkworm goo had chosen a worthy host and that the events promised to be interesting. At home, Wang Ming applied ice to his face and was angry at Jiang Sanjiang for throwing a brick. He believed that the man had done it intentionally, but he knew that the old man was not blind at all and could see what was happening perfectly. Wang Ming explained to himself that the first miss was to make the opponent relax. And if the brick hit immediately, the iron-absorbing goo would still protect the strange immortal. Jiang Sanjiang immediately saw through the whole plan. He realized that Wang Ming had first made the enemy think he was inaccurate, then used his own goo to strike at overconfidence, and only then did he land the decisive blow. The old man noted that Wang Ming was too smart for a junior and reminded him of himself in the past. Wang Ming wondered where Kan Sanjiang's knowledge came from. He recognized the iron-absorbing goo at a glance and calmly accepted the brick strike. Wang Ming realized that the old man was hiding his real past, and Jiang Sanjiang confessed that he could no longer keep quiet about the events that happened many years ago. He began to talk about the events of 1999, recalling strange and absurd things about Mars and covert operations. His story was rambling and almost delusional, but Wang Ming felt that there was something real behind the words, something related to special agents and closed organizations. Wang Ming interrupted these stories, and looking out the window began to reflect on his life. He remembered growing up in a small village and being its pride, but he realized that from the first day in this city, his start was too low. He was a nobody here, and he knew it immediately. He admitted to himself that this was why he had underestimated his goals and decided to just work hard, hoping for a normal life. Wang Ming understood that no matter how hard he tried and no matter how lucky, it would take him decades to get a house and a car, and that Xiaofei would never wait for him for even a few years. It only got worse every day. He didn't know if he could live to see the next day, didn't know when Hongjuju or Tainan would abandon him, and didn't know when the Goo Masters would appear again. The only thing he knew for sure was that he wanted to live, no matter what. Jiang Sanjiang suggested that he run away. Wang Ming realized that he was too afraid of death and too greedy at the same time. He had changed and no longer just wanted to survive. He needed to win at least once. He was aware of his own selfishness and wondered where exactly he had taken the wrong turn. The old man explained that the greater the power, the greater the responsibility, and that the discrepancy between views and reality always leads to danger. He spoke of compassion, respect for the elders, and caring for the younger ones as the only way to preserve humanity in this world. Wang Ming decided to take charge of Jiang Sanjiang. As long as he had the opportunity to eat, the old man wouldn't go hungry either. He decided to work with him sincerely, stay on Hongjiju's side, and try to earn a few more millions by acting cautiously. At that moment, a security guard appeared with bad news. Boss Hong urgently wanted Wang Ming to go to the parking lot where someone was causing a disturbance. They quickly packed up, put on their orange vests, and headed to their destination. In the parking lot, a man with a blindfold was standing in front of the boss. He acted defiantly and openly provoked, hinting at Mulong's death and insulting Wang Ming while crossing the border. The atmosphere instantly heated up, and the tension became unbearable. Wang Ming didn't hold back and punched him in the jaw. The man flew off and fell from the force of the blow. Wang Ming only coldly remarked that the enemy was too generous, and Tainan realized that after this clash, war was inevitable. After Mulong's death, Wei Qing-sui began to develop diligently, and by this point, he had already controlled 2/3 of the national force. His influence grew dramatically, and his position became almost unattainable. This made the situation around Wang Ming much more dangerous than before. Xiaofei was dissatisfied with Wang Ming's actions and felt that he had gone too far. In her opinion, pressure and intimidation were enough, not the use of gu techniques. Wang Ming, on the other hand, saw it as a manifestation of her fear and rigidity, which never disappeared. At Wei Qing-sui's order, the guards rushed forward. Wang Ming was surrounded by several people with knives, and the area around him instantly became deadly. There was nowhere for him to retreat. Wang Ming punched one of the guards in the stomach, and the guard dropped the knife. He attacked the second one right behind, aiming for the hull again. When Wang Ming turned around, there were still a few opponents around him, clenching the ring. They watched from the sidelines but were in no hurry to interfere. Xiaofei decided to let Wang Ming suffer for a while, considering it a well-deserved punishment for disobedience. Zhang San noted that her reaction is too emotional and may be related to the impact of Gu's treatment. One of the guards tried to deliver a fatal blow with a knife. Wang Ming managed to stop the blade with his hand, dodged it, and in the next second, snatched the weapon away from the opponent. His movements were sharp and precise. Immediately after, Wang Ming threw a series of punches with the same knife, not giving the guard any chance. Zhang San noticed that in the midst of a fight, Wang Ming seemed to be testing his limits, and sometimes even intimidating experienced opponents. Soon, Wang Ming was cornered and surrounded again. He abruptly lunged forward, attacking one of the guards, but at that moment, a car crashed into him at full speed. The impact was devastating. Wang Ming fell to the ground, bleeding profusely. Xiaofei coldly made it clear that the consequences would be much more serious next time, and that it might not just be Wei Qing-sui's people who would oppose him. Despite the pain, Wang Ming abruptly stood up and slapped Xiaofei's face. He made it clear that he was the only one creating chaos here, and that he was only defending himself. He considered her refusal to help as a personal responsibility. In response, Xiaofei kicked Wang Ming. Even after that, he did not back down, clearly showing that he was ready to bring the conflict to an end and was not afraid of a direct clash if the situation went even further. Wang Ming fiercely realized that Xiaofei had tricked him again. He knew that she had almost killed him, and that she had been treacherous again. In his eyes, it looked like a betrayal that was repeated too often to be tolerated. He noted that Xiaofei used him as bait, forcing him to go first, making him a scapegoat. All this time, he had only been a tool in her games, but now he realized the extent of the manipulation. Wang Ming laughed, trying to ease the tension and show that he had no limits. He only acted for the sake of survival and earning money, not afraid of the consequences and ready to fight back if anyone dared to harm him. Xiaofei reminded him of his past actions, claiming that he also cheated and hurt. Wang Ming immediately asked for concrete examples, not wanting to agree without proof. She recalled the incident with Qing Qing when Wang Ming wasn't around and didn't help. Moreover, he demanded a huge sum of money and involved an accomplice in this, using him in his schemes against her. Zhang San and Wang Ming engaged in a verbal confrontation with Xiaofei, arguing about each other's rightness and actions. Wang Ming said that he does not like to spend time arguing with women, trying to turn the conversation in his favor. He turned to Tainan, asking who had cheated on whom first, and in this tense moment, he tried to show determination and courage. Xiaofei checked on him, but she knew that she wasn't afraid of his presence and gazes. Zhang San pointed out that her behavior was due to Gu's influence. Xiaofei was shocked to realize that the attachment to Wang Ming might have been caused by this influence. Suddenly, Wang Ming kissed Xiaofei. She was in shock, and the guards standing nearby didn't understand what was going on and were left at a loss. They continued to kiss and the guards even started crying. One of them even put down his gun, not wanting to interfere with what was happening. Wang Ming recalled that a man and a woman are in different positions, comparing them to planets, and stressed that Xiaofei now belongs to him. It didn't take into account her past fears or doubts. Xiaofei tried to protest, reminding her that her father Qing Qing was actually a foster father, but Wang Ming insisted that she come to him that night. She refused, calling him a fool. But Wang Ming and Zhang San confidently joined hands, showing unity and determination to end this argument in their own way. Hong Jiju came to Wang Ming's house late at night, She was visibly agitated and couldn't speak for a long time. Wang Ming suggested that she go inside, but she refused, saying that there was no need. Then he asked her why she had come in the first place. Hong Ji-ju bowed to him and apologized for her rude attitude in the past few days. She also thanked him for saving her and helping to calm her father down. After that, she unexpectedly gave Wang Ming a kiss, turned around, and said goodnight, immediately leaving. Wang Ming was left standing there in disbelief. He automatically thanked her, and as he stared out the window, he reflected that being truly thanked by someone was a strange but pleasant feeling. The next day, Wang Ming, Zhang San, Xiaofei, and Tai Nan sat at the table and ate. Zhang San didn't hesitate to order more food and alcohol, as if he wasn't going to stop. Tai Nan was laughing merrily as he watched. Wang Ming reminded him that he and Tai Nung had only recently shared a conversation with Zhang San, and he was already demanding to continue again. Tai Nan supported him. This immediately made Xiaofei lose her temper. She slammed the table and began to accuse Wang Ming, claiming that he was the one who initiated what was happening. Wang Ming coldly rebuked her, remarking that no one should make a scene at the table. Xiaofei flared up even more, called him a failure, said that his character was disgusting, and that even with money, he would not have a decent life. After that, she abruptly left, slamming the door behind her. Tai Nan decided to follow her to help calm her down. Zhang San calmly remarked that such scenes were typical and that the more angry a woman was, the more attached she really was. Wang Ming drank in silence, acknowledging that it was normal for Xiaofei to look down on him. He reflected that he had never hidden his background, but he didn't understand why that was exactly what made her so furious. Together with Zhang San, he went outside. The man tried to cheer him up, saying that everything was still ahead of us and we shouldn't take such things to heart. At that moment, someone called out to Wang Ming loudly. He turned around after recognizing the voice and saw Giao San with a few people. Wang Ming noted that the meeting took place at a very appropriate time. Giao San said that he had been looking for him for a long time, and now he would not let him go. He then revealed the truth. His real name is Zhang Xiang, and the Yao Wang company is owned by his family. He made it clear that people like Wang Ming shouldn't get in the way, and that was why he arranged this meeting. A black car pulled up to the scene. Zhang Xiang was panicking and shouting for Lao Wei's help, while Zhang San was lying on the ground, bloodied. Lao Wei did not hesitate to order his men to attack Wang Ming. His knife-wielding fighters rushed forward to hold off the enemy. However, Wang Ming remained unperturbed. He met the attack and began to fight back fiercely, punching one guard after another. Lao Wei tried to use the gun, aiming directly at him, but the situation quickly spiraled out of control. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. The bullet hit Wang Ming in the chest, causing great pain. Lao Wei was preparing to fire a second time and was threatening death when Zhang San suddenly jumped out and pushed Lao Wei away. The bullet missed its target. Zhang San wasted no time and lifted Wang Ming onto his shoulders, carrying him away from the battlefield. When Lao Wei turned around, his opponents were already out of sight. Wang Ming slowly regained consciousness as he tried to open his eyes. Xiaofei and Zhang San were standing in front of him, observing the fighter's condition. Tai Nan noticed that Wang Ming had woken up and supported him. Helping him up, Wang Ming got up from his bunk. Realizing that he had experienced a life-threatening situation, Xiaofei sternly reminded him of the consequences of his actions and what a ruckus he had made. Zhang San tried to calm the situation down by explaining that what had already happened, and it was important to focus on solving the problems now. However, Xiaofei did not relent and reminded Wang Ming of the grave danger. The son of a member of the Council of Ministers and the group's heir, Yao Wang, was injured, and now the responsibility lies entirely with him. Wang Ming calmly said that he would take full responsibility and take care of the consequences on his own, not wanting anyone to interfere. Xiaofei quipped that this meant that he was risking his own life. Zhang San tried to explain to the lady that although Wang Ming had beaten everyone up, they had been involved in illegal activities themselves, and one of them had even fired a shot. Xiaofei, on the other hand, was adamant that he was now acting cocky despite the opportunities he had received. And that was unacceptable. Wang Ming sharply replied that he did not intend to live as a worthless person, that his actions were the result of a struggle for survival and justice. At this time, the guard gave a terrible news. The son of a member of the Council of Ministers, Chen Han, died in hospital. Xiaofei was shocked by the news of Cheng Han's death and couldn't believe it. Zhang Xiang said that when he was taken to the hospital, only his arm and legs were broken, but he still died. In his opinion, it looked like someone else was behind it all. At the same time, Zhang Xiang was in the hospital, completely bandaged up. He opened his eyes with difficulty and saw his father standing in front of him. He said that Chen Han was dead, and now Zhang Xiang can act without restrictions. My father's servant immediately confirmed the order. Zhang Xiang didn't understand what was going on and tried to ask something, but at that moment a doctor came over with a syringe. He got scared and started to fight back, not wanting the shot. The father calmly explained that if this is not done, the son's body will remain paralyzed for life. Despite the risks, my father considered the procedure necessary. The doctor inserted the needle directly into Zhang Xiang's blood. He began to convulse and scream in pain. At the same time, the minister gave the order to block off the entire city and find that dead man. His servant immediately went to carry out the order. Lao Wei, having learned of what was happening, gathered his men and announced that their time had come. He said that this night, no matter how the search of the city takes place, the minister will still be on their side. He ordered the extermination of Hongjiju, all those who oppose them, and make sure to find Wang Ming. Lao Wei's men accepted the order without hesitation. At the same time, the old man was talking to Wang Ming and directly said that he had touched both white and black, and was also involved in the murder. According to him, Wang Ming now had only one choice left: to run. Wang Ming protested that he didn't kill anyone. The old man agreed that he hadn't beaten Cheng Han to death, but he pointed out that he had died in front of a lot of people, so the truth didn't matter anymore. Wang Ming must escape, or he will be destroyed. Wang Ming asked bitterly, could it be that ordinary people like him, even if they got opportunities, would still be forever unable to change their lives? The old man replied that he was still young and his powers were beyond his control, and now the main thing was to survive. The old man said that he had a friend in Sichuan and promised to give the address. After parting, they would have to meet again here. He also explained that in Sichuan, Wang Ming will be able to get people from below to join his side. Finally, the old man taught him a few key Jianghu words that would help him survive. He explained that cannabis means a friend. Reading cannabis means being your own. If you say you read cannabis, your big brother won't touch you. The words Guir's treasure mean an offer to become friends. The old man realized that it was impossible to stay in the city any longer and warned Wang Ming that delay would lead to disaster. Wang Ming realized that everything was normal until recently, and now they were already forced to run for their lives. In order not to attract attention, they went their separate ways. Xiaofei quickly noticed Wang Ming's disappearance and asked if he had escaped. Tainan confirmed this, saying that such a guy was not able to protect her anyway and disappeared before they could find him. Wang Ming was nearby and heard everything, suspecting Tainan of treachery and wanting to take advantage of the situation. Xiaofei was worried that Qing still hadn't appeared. Tainan offered to leave immediately and promised to find her himself, but Xiaofei decided to wait. At this moment, Wang Ming surreptitiously approached them from behind. The garage suddenly opened, and Liao Wei and his men came out. At his command, Qing was brought out and placed in front of everyone. Liao Wei openly announced Mulong's death and showed that he was no longer afraid of Xiaofei, after which he roughly grabbed Qing by the hair. He demanded to reveal Wang Ming's location, threatening consequences. Xiaofei tried to convince him that Wang Ming had already escaped, but Liao Wei didn't believe her. He took out a knife and pointed it at Qing, repeating his demand. Tainan tried to confirm Xiaofei's words, claiming that Wang Ming had indeed escaped, but Liao Wei thought it was a hoax. In the next second, he stabbed Qing in the stomach and made it clear that she could still be saved if Wang Ming showed up immediately. At that moment, Liao Wei collapsed to the ground. Bleeding profusely, Wang Ming stepped forward and openly declared his presence, challenging. He demanded not to run away if they want to capture him. Liao Wei ordered all his men with knives to attack. The fight began. In a tense moment, Liao Wei pulled out his gun, and Xiaofei didn't hesitate to charge in with knives. A shot rang out, and the bullet hit Wang Ming, but he was not injured. A Gubi appeared in front of him and took the hit. Wang Ming realized that although it wasn't an absolute defense, it was still enough to withstand such an attack. Liao Wei was shocked by what he saw. Wang Ming charged forward at an incredible speed, and Xiaofei barely had time to realize how fast he was. One powerful blow, and Liao Wei collapsed to the ground. Wang Ming coldly made it clear that anyone who attacked would choose their own fate. Liao Wei admitted that he only survived because of Zhang's miraculous medicine. However, Wang Ming's next punch was so strong that Liao Wei's face was covered in blood. It became clear that the external threat wasn't able to withstand his strength. The injured Qing didn't understand why Wang Ming had come back, risking his life for her. He explained that he wanted to remain a good person, at least for her. Her condition was stabilized and everyone was ordered to leave immediately. Xiaofei suggested that Wang Ming run with them. The boat was already ready, but he refused, saying that everything that happens is the result of his decisions and he should stay. He thanked Tainan, calling him the most courageous person he knew. Xiaofei couldn't accept that everything was just business between them. Wang Ming harshly repeated this, denying any of Gu's feelings and influence, insisting that she leave immediately. Xiaofei broke down and burst into tears, and Tainan realized that Wang Ming was much stronger in spirit than he was. Left alone, Wang Ming felt his strength rapidly drain away. The old man realized that this was a kickback from the excessive use of the golden silkworm Gu, and lured out the hiding enemy. There was a person connected to the heavenly Gu who admitted that he deliberately eliminated the protectors first, and then he was going to take the golden silkworm away. The old man mockingly pointed out his self-confidence. The opponent used the blood mosquito goo, making it clear that there was a price to pay for touching the silkworm. At this time, Wang Ming was looking after the car that Tainan, Xiaofei, and Qing Qing were leaving in. He realized that he was rarely so selfless and hoped that his sacrifice would not be in vain. His only wish was that they would be able to escape, even if he himself had to face the impending darkness. The experiment of Yao Wang's group was successful. Zhang Xiang once again felt his body, which meant full compatibility. His father confirmed that the latest biological transformation based on the ancient Wu Gu was applied. For the procedure, Zhang Xiang's body underwent major changes. Higher regeneration techniques were used, and he almost became disabled. As a result, he received a pair, cockroach Gu, which was a humiliation and shock for him. Meanwhile, Wang Ming was sneaking through the building. He hoped that the security guards hadn't lied about the location of Jiang Xiang and his father in the penthouse. He moved quickly, but cautiously. The camera still caught it. Security immediately raised the alarm and relayed the message to all units. The building went into a state of full combat readiness. Jiang Xiang's father realized that the situation was critical. He ordered the destruction of all project data that very night. For him, the security of information was the most important thing. Wang Ming was already in the elevator and heading up. His goal was to create chaos to divert attention and give Tai Neng, Xiaofei, and the others a chance to escape. At the same time, Tai Neng and the others' car was being chased. The pursuers suddenly turned around and headed back to the base, fearing trouble from Chief Zhang. All the armed men rushed into the building. They understood that if Chief Zhang was in danger, the consequences would be disastrous for themselves as well. Wang Ming encountered them first. The guards opened fire, but the iron-devouring goo started absorbing the weapon. Guns were destroyed right in the hands of the shooters. A few seconds later, the guards were destroyed. Hidden Master's Mantis and Poison Bee were watching the scene. They quickly realized that Wang Ming was far from an ordinary person. They decided not to get involved right away. The plan was to let the scorpion and flower snake attack first, then ambush them. Wang Ming could feel the surveillance. He understood that as long as the floor was covered in the power of the iron-devouring goo, it would remain invisible to ordinary eyes, but not to real hunters. He broke into the office. There was Zhang Xiang, who had already recovered and turned even more violent. His body looked different. The transformation had changed his essence. Jiang Xiang's father invited Wang Ming to join them. He was interested in his abilities and believed that everything that had happened could be forgotten. Wang Ming formally agreed, but made conditions. This provoked annoyance and ridicule from Jiang Xiang, who tried to provoke him. My father quickly realized that the conversation was pointless. He ordered Wang Ming to be captured and prepared for absorption. The flower snake attacked first. Wang Ming was thrown back with such force that the wall was shattered. His body was already poisoned with goo poison. A venomous bee appeared, coming into conflict with a snake over its prey. Next came the praying mantis, which had been waiting for the right moment for a long time. Wang Ming was trapped. The lower floors were filled with armed men, and escape routes were blocked. At that moment, Xiaofei and Tainan appeared. They arrived with heavy weapons and gave Wang Ming a chance to continue the fight. The battle broke out with renewed vigor. Wang Ming broke back to Jiang Xiang's father and killed him despite all his resources and protection. He grabbed Jiang Xiang, but the latter gave the order to open fire. The bullets didn't deal any damage to Wang Ming, but the fire started to suppress iron-devouring goo. Realizing that he might be taken alive, Wang Ming threw himself out of a high-floor window. At that moment, his grandfather intervened and saved him. After that, Yao Wang's group released all the gus. Monsters flooded the streets, the city was plunged into chaos, and a state of emergency was declared. Wang Ming woke up 3 days later. My grandfather explained that the artificial gus had gone out of control, and a war with the government forces had begun. He realized that everything related to goo would be destroyed, including himself. The only way out was to run and disappear. With Sang Chang's help, Wang Ming left the ruined city. He decided to lay low and start all over again while the world collapsed around him. In the new city, he found his old friend Fetty. Fetty said that he had a big company and would find a job for Wang Ming. Fetty led Wang Ming to the place where he worked. He proudly explained that the project is conducted at the state level of secrecy. Living conditions were poor, but according to him, it did not matter because the development had a huge potential. Wang Ming immediately became suspicious and asked if it was a pyramid scheme. He had seen too many similar schemes and knew how they ended. Fetty immediately objected. He said that the pyramids are illegal and do not have a product, but they have a real product. The project was called Yao Wang's Team, was known all over the country and enjoyed trust. The price was $999 for 10 boxes. and to become an employee, you only had to buy 100 boxes. Hearing the name Yao Wang, Wang Ming stiffened inwardly. The name kept coming back into his life, as if it was following him everywhere. A short-haired man in an expensive suit approached them. Fetty quickly introduced him as Mr. Wang's manager, and emphasized that he was a graduate of Tsinghua University. The manager greeted them politely and invited them inside. His manner was calm and confident, which was even more disconcerting. Fetty and Wang Ming went into the dining room. Fetty brought a tray of food and immediately warned Wang Ming not to pay attention to the quality of the food. He said that difficult conditions build character and help to achieve success. Then Fetty suddenly started adding toothpaste to his food. He did it confidently, as if it were a normal thing to do. Wang Ming was shocked and asked what he was doing. He reminded that toothpaste is not intended for food. Fetty laughed and explained that you can't eat regular pasta, but not their product. He called it Yao Wang's Super Pasta Team, and said that it is not only edible but also cures diseases, improves the appearance, and even helps people with cancer. Fetty claimed that many employees felt much better after using it. He added that otherwise one box wouldn't be worth 99. Wang Ming refused to eat and said he wasn't hungry. He invited Fetty to eat for himself, watching closely for Fetty's reaction. Fetty reported that Wang Ming had arrived too late. The headmaster was supposed to give a lesson today. According to him, the director was a young man who only worked for a year, but already earned millions. Wang Ming realized that Fetty didn't even realize how deep he was being dragged. Inside, he decided that he had to find a way to get his friend out of this place. Fetty enthusiastically asked what they would do after they made a lot of money. He dreamed of freedom and a new life. Wang Ming answered evasively. He said that it is important to be able to live well not only with money, but also without it. At this point, it was announced that the director was already on his way, and everyone needed to get ready. The hall immediately became noisy. Fetty pulled Wang Ming along, saying that they needed to get the best seats. He looked excited and inspired. As they sat down, Wang Ming noticed a girl on the stage. In that moment, he was shocked to recognize her. The audience greeted the director with applause. The atmosphere was like a cult, not a work meeting. The headmistress began to speak. She talked about her past, claiming that she was once as poor as everyone else present. According to her, Yao Wang's team gave her hope and completely changed her life. She assured me that everyone in this room would be able to achieve the same thing, and perhaps even surpass her success. Her words were inspiring, but they were dangerously confident. Wang Ming connected everything together in his mind. Zhao Xiao, Yao Wang's team, Super Paste, financial pyramid scheme, and Xiao Fei, it was all part of the same chain. Fetty applauded enthusiastically, oblivious to Wang Ming's alarm. The lecture lasted about 2 hours. After it ended, the headmistress said that she would stay late to personally support the employees. Just as Wang Ming was about to leave, someone suddenly called out to him from behind. Wang Ming turned around and noticed the headmistress. She suddenly appeared next to him, and the atmosphere immediately became tense. Fetty was also nearby, but Wang Ming made it clear that the headmaster wanted to talk to him in person, so Fetty should return to the dorm. Fetty agreed and left, leaving Wang Ming alone with her. When the two of them were alone, the director immediately made it clear that she knew too much about Wang Ming. Wang Ming replied that since she knew everything, she should also be aware of what Zhao Xiang had become. He said this with an obvious anger that the headmaster noticed and didn't ignore. The headmistress began to sound mocking and ambiguous, as if there was still something personal between them. She was hinting that Wang Ming still held a special place in her heart. Wang Ming abruptly asked her to stop making such jokes and not go overboard. After that, the director admitted that she works in Yao Wang's team and is ready to break off relations with Zhao Xiang. She said that she couldn't stop thinking about Wang Ming and that their meeting here wasn't accidental. According to her, she only became close to Zhao Xiang for the sake of Wang Ming and their future together. Wang Ming replied coldly and said that she was a girl and should keep her dignity. The words stung her. The director lost her temper and said that she had nothing but her body and she wanted a better life. She believed that trying to achieve this by any means did not make her worse than others. She accused Wang Ming of being hypocritical, saying that they were actually the same. She didn't understand why he was looking down on her and talking like she was a test subject. Wang Ming briefly called the whole thing stupid. Then the director turned to threats. She reminded him that she worked here and could destroy Wang Ming if she wanted to. In response, he calmly asked what exactly she was going to do. Instead of explaining, she ordered me to follow her. They came to a closed room. There, the director hugged Wang Ming and made it clear that she missed him. He cautiously asked what all this was about. In response, she opened several briefcases filled with money. The director suggested a plan. Using Wang Ming's strength and her status in Yao Wang's company, they could escape and travel freely together. Wang Ming understood what she was getting at and asked about Zhao Xiang and his placement in the pyramid scheme department as compensation. The director denied this, saying that she had achieved everything herself and received the status on her own. Wang Ming then assumed that she was the one who abandoned Zhao Xiang without any compensation. The words completely infuriated her. She called Wang Ming a pathetic commoner and said that he had a miserable future ahead of him. In her opinion, he had no right to look down on her. At that moment, there was a shout in the corridor that the police had arrived. Police were standing at the entrance. They announced that inside the factory people had been tricked by pyramid schemes and that the police had come to rescue everyone. They asked not to panic and not to resist, emphasizing that they do not want evil. However, there was a man among the people who shouted that the police should not be allowed in. He said that they are political rivals of the project leader and that their goal is to destroy everything. The tension increased dramatically. Fetty stepped in too. He called on everyone to work together and not let the enemies destroy their dreams. According to him, the leader will definitely protect them if they stick together. Wang Ming opened the door and saw Fetty running forward with a baton. His behavior was reckless and dangerous, and Wang Ming immediately knew that the situation was getting out of hand. At that moment, the director turned to Wang Ming. She said she was aware of his desire to leave the country and had already contacted the smuggler. According to her plan, Wang Ming must protect her and the money, and after escaping, they will go their separate ways. Wang Ming agreed to this condition. Outside, a policeman announced that assaulting a police officer was punishable by law. He said that the police were sent by relatives to save the people here and urged everyone to put down their weapons and not resist. Fetty refused to listen. He shouted that everyone was deeply mistaken and that they just wanted to make money. His words only made the situation worse. The police officer admitted that Fetty was out of control and ordered to use force measures. Special forces soldiers started getting out of their cars. Panic set in. Fetty screamed in fear. Wang Ming grabbed him and stopped him abruptly, knowing that it would only get worse. He picked up Fetty and carried him back, not letting him escape. Wang Ming tried to bring Fetty to her senses, explaining that this was a special police force. He didn't understand how Fetty didn't realize that the cops were already here, and Fetty still didn't accept reality. Fetty broke down and started crying. He admitted that he spent all of his parents' savings and now doesn't know what to do. His fear was genuine and desperate. Wang Ming said that Fetty was still young and had been used by his elders this time. He reminded that there is a long road ahead and many more chances. He advised me not to resist the police and live a righteous life in the future, and then he was going to leave. Fetty asked him where he was going. Wang Ming replied that wherever fate leads. By this time, the director was fully prepared and handed Wang Ming the suitcase with the money. He was surprised by the number of them and said that she couldn't carry them all at once. The director replied that she would rather go to prison than be left without money. Wang Ming wondered if she knew how to live differently. Night had already fallen when they arrived at a hut. The director said they were there. Wang Ming asked for the right person. The director explained that this man was just her bodyguard. Wang Ming noted that she had taken enough money for 2 people. The man opened the door to them and expressed dissatisfaction with the fact that the director did not come alone, as they had originally agreed otherwise. The director insisted that everything was in order, and they were allowed inside. Wang Ming and the director entered. The man paid attention to Wang Ming, noting that he did not look strong, and questioned his role as a bodyguard. The situation escalated dramatically when the man tried to attack with a knife. Wang Ming reacted instantly, intercepting his hand and pressing it against the table, showing that he was able to stand up for himself. The man recognized his skills. Wang Ming asked about the boat's arrival time, trying to maintain control of the conversation. The man made it clear that he just allowed them to enter, but this does not mean that he is ready to take them on the boat. He hinted at a deal involving eliminating some people to save others. Wang Ming reacted sharply when he heard people being called pigs. He stressed that these are people and that he does not kill people under any circumstances. The boat was already approaching. The man said that those people have no money, and the contract they signed turned them into slaves, which is why he no longer considers them people. The director openly said that she was not going to give them money and did not consider herself a saint. Wang Ming realized that there was no other way to go. The man insisted that when there are no other options, there is only one way. However, Wang Ming firmly stated that even without a choice, he would not kill innocents and would not get on this boat. The man said that the Maritime Patrol has increased control and that this is the last boat this week. There wasn't much time to think. He added that the boat would leave in half an hour. The director violated the agreement by bringing an extra person, and now she must compensate for this if she wants to get on the boat. The director offered to pay double the price and demanded to stop talking. The man replied that the right to board a boat does not depend on money, but solely on his mood. Wang Ming looked at the approaching boat and realized that there was almost no time left. The thought flashed through his mind that maybe that was all he could possibly do in this situation. Inside the hut, the director slowly began to undress, hoping to solve the problem. Her behavior was desperate and showed how much she was afraid of losing her chance to escape. The man abruptly stopped her, pointing out that there were other people around, and such behavior was inappropriate here. Then he made it clear in disgust that he wasn't attracted to it, hinting at possible illnesses and calling it unpleasant. At this point, the situation changed dramatically. Wang Ming attacked the captain who was on the boat and completely disabled him. He made it clear that if he wasn't allowed on board, the captain wouldn't survive. The man questioned this decision, hinting that even if he agreed, Wang Ming might be killed immediately after the captain was released. The risk was obvious. Wang Ming calmly explained that his death would not bring any benefits. On the contrary, if he is not touched, the man will receive more money, as well as compensation for everything that happened that day. After a moment's thought, the man agreed. He allowed Wang Ming to board the boat and demanded that the captain be released. Wang Ming fulfilled this condition. The captain immediately tried to draw a knife but was stopped. The man warned him that he couldn't handle Wang Ming and that the next mistake might cost him his life. Wang Ming was then given instructions. He was told that he was on his way to Chinatown to find Huaquan Gong III, and that he had come on the recommendation of the Scarred Man. The man briefly explained that the name Huaquan Gang is associated with several influential figures and various groups within the structure. He promised to reveal more details later. After that, Wang Ming was handed a package labeled pressed cookies and warned to hide it well. He was also given to understand that he was a stranger here and should not disgrace the Chinese. Wang Ming accepted it without further ado. He boarded with the others, and the boat began to move. One of the enslaved men noticed that the sun was rising. However, the captain coldly indicated that the joy would not last long and would soon be replaced by regret. Suddenly, a yacht approached them, and a ladder was thrown from it. The situation became tense again. The captain explained that his task was simply to get them to the boat, and then everyone should act on their own. He stressed that Wang Ming does not belong to the black, and therefore must obey orders without question, otherwise his life will end. They boarded. The director immediately started acting like a hostess, demanding food, drinks, and a shower, promising to pay for it. The navigator outwardly agreed, addressing her with exaggerated politeness. However, in the next second, a gunshot rang out. The navigator made it clear that he was the only one in command on this ship. He announced that all the money was now his, and ordered them to be taken to the basement where the rats brought from South Asia were kept. Everyone was herded into the basement. The atmosphere became oppressive and dangerous. Wang Ming tried to talk to the people around him, asking them where they were from, but no one had time to answer. The door swung open abruptly, and 3 men entered. They grabbed one of the slaves by the hair and started dragging her. The director tried to attract Wang Ming's attention. At that moment, one of the men who entered noticed her, grabbed her by the hair and roughly pulled her towards him. The director panicked and started begging for help. She didn't hide her fear. Wang Ming let out an exasperated sigh, then attacked with lightning speed. He beat up all 3 men, giving them no chance to fight back. Then he said that if they didn't take control of the ship, everyone would die here. He ordered those who know how to handle weapons to take them from the attackers. At this time, the navigator above was quietly drinking wine. When he heard the gunshot, he turned around and saw Wang Ming and the former slaves already armed. The navigator was furious and said that they were signing their own death warrant. He reminded that they are at sea and no one will survive without a crew. He tried to win them over by promising them status, women, and money if they killed Wang Ming and became part of the team. One of the former slaves hesitated, then stepped closer. He excused himself and pointed the gun at Wang Ming. Wang Ming immediately noticed his accent and realized that he wasn't Chinese. In the next second, the gun was pointed at his back. The former slave confessed that they were not Chinese. They were Vietnamese. The navigator gave the order to destroy the rioters. Shots rang out almost immediately, and a few bullets hit Wang Ming, but they didn't do any damage to him. He calmly noted that those around him did not notice at all what was happening to the world around them. The man who had been watching him from the beginning understood the reason for what was happening. He guessed that the golden silkworm goo had undergone a change again. In the next instant, Wang Ming stripped every one of their weapons with a flick of his hand. Pistols and rifles were torn from the hands of people, and the ship began to panic. The sailors shouted that it was black magic, and that Wang Ming was using forbidden powers. All the weapons fell to the floor at once. Wang Ming suddenly felt something amiss. He realized that he could no longer contact the golden silkworm goo, and this made him wary. The navigator immediately noticed the change in the situation and announced that Wang Ming's strength was gone. He ordered them to open fire again. People began to pick up their weapons in a hurry. Wang Ming realized that without Goo's power, he wouldn't be able to withstand firearms. Chaotic shooting began. Someone reported that the goods had been shot. The navigator ordered to destroy everyone without exception. Wang Ming cursed under his breath and took cover behind the wall. The bodies of the dead were lying around, and among them, in a pool of blood, was the headmistress. One of the ship's employees reported losses. 5 were killed, 4 managed to escape. The navigator demanded to find the ship's captain immediately. Wang Ming became alert after hearing this. He noticed a man in a suit sitting off to the side, looking withdrawn. Wang Ming captured him and walked out, using the captain as a shield, demanding that the shooting stop. The men were about to open fire, but the navigator ordered them to stop. However, one of the bullets still hit the captain. Wang Ming realized that no one would get out alive after that. The navigator gave the order to fire again. The fire resumed with renewed vigor. Wang Ming quickly began to deal with those who were shooting. One by one they fell, until only the former slave remained alive. He began to beg for mercy, claiming that they were supposedly on the same side. He then said that before he died, Wang Ming would see Gu's real prowess. Wang Ming demanded a name. In response, the slave raised his hands, and all the dead around him began to rise. Wang Ming immediately understood what he was facing. He recognized the iron-devouring Gu and soul. Gu, as he realized that he was facing an extremely dangerous opponent. Gu Duch confirmed the guess and noted that Wang Ming seemed to possess a box of secrets. Wang Ming tried to negotiate, offering to hand her over in exchange for heavenly Gu. Gu Duch just laughed. He stated that with the soul Gu, he didn't need any mystery box. One of the reanimated corpses moved towards Wang Ming. He punched him in the stomach and noticed that the enemy's speed was increasing, and their skin was becoming like iron. Wang Ming realized the scale of the threat. The Soul Gu was an S-rank spiritual Gu and could control multiple bodies at the same time. He realized that after destroying the body, the soul would be able to separate. Gu Dush threw Wang Ming several meters away with a flick of his hand. It became clear that the opponent was in complete control of his skill. Gu Dush stated that abilities below S rank were useless against him, and asked if Wang Ming had such a skill. Wang Ming thought about it. He thought of one S-rank ability, but he knew that using it would mean making an irreversible choice. At that moment, the headmistress, still alive, begged to be saved. Wang Ming noticed that some of the slaves were already leaving on another boat, and he knew that this was a chance. He threw the headmistress towards the boat and activated the S-rank Gu skill attraction Gu. Gu Dush was shocked. He knew that it was a one-time skill that created an unbreakable bond until death. Wang Ming jumped overboard. He understood that the completion of Gu binds hearts forever. Gu Dush shouted in rage as he realized that a skill that wasn't meant to be used like this had been used on him. In the water, Wang Ming caught up with the headmistress, picked her up, and realized that she would not survive. He mentally forgave her and let her go to sea. After a while, he was sitting on a boat, holding a silkworm in his hands. He realized that the seal was finally broken, and Gu had evolved into a 4-winged golden silkworm. He released it, and it immediately went into the water. The silkworm didn't return for a long time. 2 hours passed. Wang Ming began to worry if he had escaped. At that moment, a heavy storm began. The storm quickly turned to hail. Huge chunks of ice fell from the sky, and each blow could be fatal. Wang Ming jumped into the water. There, his leg was caught in seaweed, and then he realized that he was entangled in a fishing net. As he sank deeper, he saw seaweed and, unexpectedly, a mermaid that swam up to him and dragged him down. My mind was confused. Wang Ming thought of Xiao Hong, then opened his eyes to see a face that looked like Xiao Fei, and realized that he was on the seabed. All of a sudden, the mermaid's face contorted, turning into a monster, and she charged at him. Wang Ming began to swim away, and in the process he saw his silkworm. He grabbed it and noticed the wings and horns. The mermaid attacked again. Wang Ming punched her, and yellow sparks of silkworm energy shot out from the impact. He scrambled back to the surface, climbed aboard, and picked up the silkworm, reproaching it for its long absence. Silkworm looked out toward the ocean. A sea turtle appeared there. Wang Ming realized that he was lucky. The turtle swam to the boat, and the silkworm began to fly around it. Wang Ming carefully sat down on the turtle, hoping that it wouldn't deceive him. 7 days later, he saw Earth. He went ashore, and the turtle swam back into the ocean. Wang Ming found himself in the jungle. He realized that without the golden Gu, he would have died long ago, and decided to follow Grandpa Bay's rules of survival. He went to the highest point of the area, eating the fruits he found on the way. When he reached the cliff, he looked down and saw the flag of Canada. At that moment, he realized that he might have drifted there. Wang Ming continued on his way and thought about the Chinese gang that Scarface uncle had mentioned. He was sure that there was someone among them who knew the right connections. Suddenly, there was a commotion from behind. Wang Ming followed the sound and saw a girl tied up by a tree. She looked scared, and tears were streaming down her face. He noted to himself that she was indeed very beautiful. As he got closer, he realized that he was in Canada, a foreign country where English and French were mostly spoken, which he had only studied until 6th grade. The girl said that she was tied up by a group of bad guys. They bullied her and left for a while. She begged me to help and hurry. Wang Ming noticed how straightforward her words were, but decided not to push it further. He stepped closer. intending to untie her. At that moment, a man appeared from behind with a phone, who was filming what was happening. He accused Wang Ming of harassment and claimed that the girl was his. Wang Ming immediately knew that he had been lured into a trap. The man pulled out a gun and began threatening to kill, claiming that everything would look like a fair punishment. The girl instantly changed her behavior and began to flirt with the man. Wang Ming realized that this was a pre-planned blackmail. The man offered a deal, all of Wang Ming's money in exchange for his freedom. Otherwise, he was going to shoot him and turn the video over to the police. A mention of the Brotherhood, a Chinese gang, came up in the conversation. The man confirmed that their strongest representatives are in Vancouver. Wang Ming offered money in exchange for location information. After that, they headed into the city together. On the way, the man explained that there were no Chinese gangs in their area, and if Wang Ming needed connections, he would have to go to Vancouver. Wang Ming realized that he had enough funds, including thanks to Xiaofei's card. He promised that in the future he would cover all expenses if the man came to Vancouver. He got in his car and headed to Vancouver's Chinatown, determined to find a gang to solve the identification problem. In Chinatown, he approached a local man and asked about the Brotherhood's people. He pointed to San Ye and Long Feng's house. The man added that Sun Ye has been retired for a long time, but remains an authoritative figure. This street was still under the Brotherhood's protection. Suddenly, the conversation was interrupted by the news of the appearance of the Vietnamese with weapons. They controlled the port and had been hunting for the third master of the Brotherhood in recent years. The man realized the danger and handed Wang Ming a bag with money, promising to deal with the Vietnamese and pick it up later. Wang Ming ran away. Almost immediately, a shootout broke out, and the man was shot dead in front of his eyes. Wang Ming hid and swore that they would meet again. He was moving up the stairs with a gun while a fight was going on in the corridors. When all was quiet, he heard a shot and took cover. He introduced himself and asked if the shooter was a member of the Brotherhood. It turned out to be the third master of the Brotherhood, Zheng Shi Wang. Wang Ming explained that he had arrived on the recommendation of the scarred man and wanted to join. The third foreman reported that there were still 3 Vietnamese people left in the building. Due to his injury and lack of ammunition, he was unable to fight fully. Wang Ming decided to act on his own. He found his opponents, pretended to be wounded, lured them out, and destroyed them. When the threat was eliminated, a gun was pointed at him from behind. The tension didn't last long. The third master found out about his strength. Wang Ming confessed to being a Gu practitioner. After that, they sat down at the table and started talking. The third master explained that Yao Wang's group has become a big case, but because of the complicated connections, the police can't interfere. This opened the way for Zhang Hu's actions. Wang Ming realized that he was referring to Yao Wang's patrons in the United States. The third master confirmed this and said that the Brotherhood would support him. It was decided to create a leadership club of the Brotherhood, operating abroad, but ready to help the motherland at any time. 3 days later, the ship arrived in Hainan. Wang Ming went ashore and realized that everything had happened too quickly, like a dream. He asked about the helpers. Xiaofei, Tianjing, and Old Man Zhang soon appeared. Wang Ming rushed over to Xiaofei and apologized. She only noted that the main thing is that everyone is still alive. The old man confirmed that all the tasks assigned by the organization had been completed. The ship was ready to sail. Wang Ming looked at the old man and wondered who he really was.